Okay, welcome to the Speaking Tier 2 office hours. I was just talking about taking a talk from any of the leaders and being able to just take one talk and look at it from a speaking lens. So look for that hook, the story, the call to action, the connecting stories, experiences, stats, anything like that. And then at the somewhere in there, that testimonial, the call to action, and that final testimony that they share all the time, that's kind of what you want to leave them with, that final, you got this. So that would just be a thought for you to do this week. All right, let's go around and everyone share a very quick from your speaking experiences, which is so fantastic that you are all having speaking experiences. I am just ecstatic. What was one thing that you learned, youth conference, from that recent training that you did, and artist from Fresh Living? What was one thing that you felt really worked for you as a speaker? It could be something that we talked about, trained on, or what was one thing that you felt really helped you? Who wants to go first? There's cute Wendy. Go ahead, Wendy Jones.
Okay. So my husband and I planned for way too much material. So in case the kids didn't give us feedback, we had plenty because we had a full 45 minutes to talk to these kids. And so we had more quotes and information that we needed. But at the very last minute, not the very last minute, but the night before, I told my husband, I said, I got some really good advice from Connie, and it was to pare down and make sure we were reading our audience. And so we went into our slideshow and took out things that we just felt were too much and decided to up our engagement and ask better questions. And each time we presented, we had about anywhere from 25 to 30 kids in the room because they were on rotations. They could choose, they could go to a class 3 times, and they had a total of 6 classes to choose from. And all 3 classes obviously went different because our audience was different. So they were very similar, but it was good because we asked good questions, we waited for them to answer, and then we read the audience. So sometimes we had to tweak it a little bit because we could tell the audience had changed a little. So that was the best advice. It went so well. Like all 3 went so well. And we had it down. The first time we did it, they told us they needed us to be done at the 45-minute mark. And we finished at 9:44. And then the next time we ended right at 9:45. And the next time we ended at 9:45. So like we had it down to a science. So it was perfect. It was perfect.
I'm so glad. I'm glad that helped. I'm so glad that you took it. That is a fear thing, is that we end up wanting to have and shove too much. I do that all the time, and I have to keep pulling it back. And even when I'm trying to. So great job. It takes trust in yourself and in the spirit to pare it back and allow for that flow. Oh, beautiful. Who wants to go next? Hi, Wendy Love. We're just talking about everybody had a speaking experience, and you had yours in front of 500 people. So we're sharing one thing that either we've learned here or that you've learned about speaking that helped you be able to do it and do it better. All right, who wants to go next? Amanda.
So mine would be the art of storytelling. When I first started, so we did a big presentation with all of our teachers, and I was like smushed in the middle. And the first 2 speakers, all they did was throw information. Like there was no question, it was just, we need you doing this, and we need you, and their slides were so jam-packed with stuff. And so I watched the audience, and I watched them disengage very, very quickly. So when it was my turn, I was already starting with a disengaged audience. And so the first thing that I did is I drew their attention to my slide. I was like, have you ever felt like this in an IEP meeting? And so now they're like, ooh, felt like what? And they went right to my slide. And I had an engaging slide where all it was a picture of a little boy plugging his ears and screaming, and the mom crying, and the teacher like presenting data. And then I went into my story. I just went into, I want to share with you an experience that I had when I went into an IEP meeting with one of my boys. So I just went into it, and I kept all my points to 3 things that they could do and try and implement. And it was amazing. Like there was not disengagement. As a matter of fact, in the chat, it was, as I was speaking, there was tons of things going that were just saying, Amanda, you are an incredible speaker. Like you are so engaging. Like it was good.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. You guys, you're doing it. You're doing it. And just these tweaks, just these simple things. Now this tool of reading the room and going, where are they at? And then knowing this is what I can do to combat that. This is what I can do. That is hysterical. A fun slide, and then relating it to how they're feeling. Then they feel this camaraderie. They feel immediate connection. She gets me. Oh, and then you provide stories and exciting and good, juicy stuff instead of just talking at them. Love. So great. All right, who's next? Beautiful. Artist.
Okay, so Fresh Living, I was supposed to arrive there like at 9:45 and I was a nerd and I arrived there at like 9:15, like a half an hour early. But what I learned from that is that we always talk about leading them to something, right? Leading them. And so I knew like Uplift Families had told me, you have to share our website. You have to say upliftfamilies.org. Make sure you get that in. That is like the number one thing. So I had, written the questions, written the answers. I knew what it was. There were 5 of them. And so she asked me 3 of them and then she skipped and she just like, and thank you for coming. It was like a thank you, like you're done. Thanks so much. We ran out of time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not get number 5, which was the key, which was where I was supposed to lead them to. And so I just said, well, thank you so much. And if people need to find out more information, they can go. And I just went off on my little spiel without even being asked. I took the interview away. But I knew I had to lead them somewhere. I knew that was the key. So I was so grateful that Connie had prepared me and taught me that we have to lead them somewhere, because it was in my mind. And even when she cut me off, I was like, she can give me 10, 15 more seconds to say upliftfamilies.org. And that's what I did. So
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah, we need to give each other some love. Yes. In fact, she shared the Marco with me, Marco afterwards. And I was like, you cannot believe how often you have to lead the interviewer sometimes. It's unreal, especially if there's a sub. And this is so smart that she knew. And even the conversation that the lady started with at the beginning, the interviewer started kind of going off on a tangent and your time is short. So Artist, she didn't say this, but what she told me that she did, she expertly led her back with her thing. And always remember, a good thing to say, and this is from, who was it that would always give, that was Bill Clinton, would always say, a better question is that they ask a question that he didn't want to answer. And he'd say, that's a good question. A better question is blah, blah, blah. And that's a nice little segue to help bounce back to where you actually want to go. So if it's going south, you can just say, that's a good question. So you're getting them safe face. They say, but a better question I have found is blah, blah, blah. And that gets you back to it. So just a little thought there. All right, Wendy Christensen.
Okay, I'm in my office now. So it ended up not being 500 people, thankfully. It was only about 150, which was totally fine, which was great. And it was so fun because Carrie came and showed up in the audience and she was there supporting me, but also for the information. And so that was good to get her feedback right after. And most of them, so the kids were able to make up their U's if they came. So I had tons of teenagers, way more teenagers than I thought. So I really had to read my audience quickly. I thought I was going to have a lot more parents. And since I had more teenagers, I tried to make it's a tough subject. I mean, it's the presentation that I do is the warning signs of suicide, and then going through something called QPR, which is teaching them how to ask the question if somebody is suicidal, to persuade them to go get help and then refer them to get help. So it's not a super uplifting thing, but thankfully the presentation that we have put together, and I kind of have to run the one that's been done and put together, but usually there's an experiential piece where they role play, and I often skip that because of time. And I was going to, and then I all of a sudden went, I've got too many kids here. So I put it in and I said, let's practice. I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I was able to I ran over 5 minutes, but that's okay because they started like 8 minutes late. So I took that 8 minutes, and it ended up being really well. In fact, I had kids afterward. A lot of them were Hope Squad kids too that were there. I had a mixture of these really good Hope Squad kids and then a mixture of these kids that don't really put a lot of effort into life. Like there was one kid on his phone the whole time, which is fine. But I was like, I hope and when I was on the stage, I remember praying, I hope he's getting something out of this. I just hope he's getting something. And afterwards, I had a few kids from the Hope Squad come down and want my picture with them. I was like so surprised. I'm like,
ultimate compliment. Okay, serious. Wow.
It was fun. And I had several people come after, and I had booklets to hand out to them. So I handed out some booklets and talked to a few people that had questions. And so I tried to keep it engaging. I mean, we've got a mixture of, I had 3 little videos and the experiential. And then I also throw in my own stories. So I throw in several stories, but mine aren't super, they're like suicidal stories. Like a warning sign and this is why, and a warning sign and this is another experience, that I feel like are good stories that really illustrate the point that I'm making. So it's a tough subject, but we did it.
I love giving you some love. Seriously, girl, that is a tough gig. And then to have the different age span and the different interests, like what are they wanting from this, right? Great job of shifting those gears. And I think that we could all say in all of the things that stories are a number one thing. It's a way to be able to make it connecting. And this reading the room, reading the situation, being able to shift the gear. You can be stellar on stage for 45 minutes, but then if you get into an interview and you can't adjust, people are going to be like, they can't speak, right? But it's just because the format changed. So you've learned to shift the gear and trust that. And I think moms actually are better at this than anybody in the game, because we have to shift gears all day long and we have to try to make it palatable to different age groups and come in the back door and blah, blah, blah. So rely on your mom ninja skills and being able to say, you know what, I know how to adjust. I'm going to trust that. I can feel that kids are checking out, but I think he's probably still getting something out of it. And I think that's a huge piece. I know my little guy, he's in the room next door doing his Legos, and I'm having girl chat with one of my daughters, and he'll pipe up something from the other room. And we're like, this was supposed to be a private conversation. And he's totally hearing and listening, even though it doesn't seem like it. So nice job. Beautiful. Yeah.
One more last thing. So afterwards, the person who invited me, there were 2 school counselors, and she was like, Wendy, that was perfect. That was exactly what we needed. You were the perfect presenter. You presented it exactly the way we wanted, exactly the content that we wanted. And she even sent an email to the lady that was over, all of the arrangements of everything, and said she was perfect for the presentation, exactly what we wanted and needed. So
then that's your testimonial. Awesome. Grab that email, grab that testimonial and put it on your website. Yep. And put it in something in your social media or whatever. This is not braggy. This is letting people know I share this and this is people's response to this. And so you can trust it. Nice. Excellent job. I would ask that of any of you. I know it's a little trickier with youth conference. So, you don't often just say, hey, can you share how awesome that was, right? But if anybody shares something, a text or whatever, I've used that before, where there was someone from the stake that was like, oh my gosh, our women were laughing, they were crying, they were changed, they were moved. I put it on. I didn't put stake or leaf-sided president. I just put her name on one of the testimonials. And if she sends it to you, it's fair game, right? It's fair game. You're not like trying to be all that in a bag of chips. I love, great job, everybody. Oh my gosh, you guys, you are just right out of the gate. You are making this happen. I'm so proud of you. Where are you putting those testimonials? On your website, in your social media, in your one sheet, your speaker one sheet. When you send a thing to someone, you want to make sure and have that at the bottom. Here's some comments from people who have hired me or who have invited me to come and speak in their stake, or hired me to speak at their. Anytime that you can say hired, if you're looking for a hired gig, then use words like they hired me to speak. If they actually did hire you to speak, even if it was just like for $50 or $100 or whatever, if they hired you, then put that hired me. So they know it's just that. My Uncle Bob said, come on over to the family reunion and whatever. So I encourage you anywhere you can put it, especially for now. And then you'll get to the point where you'll be calling out the testimonials to have it say exactly what the points that you want to make. So like someone says that you were engaging, someone says that you were this, so you can hit those key points that you want people to know. So you'll eventually just call them out and put on the specific ones that you want. But for now, just keep putting them on. Any other questions? I'm just so proud of you. You ladies, I have to tell you this. I have felt so strongly that the speaking thing, I mean, we teach speaking and writing and media presence, and we do that for a reason. And I feel super strong about that. But my heart and soul is with speaking. And I feel like, even though I've written like a bazillion books, I feel like we are to be able to stand up and speak up, like President Nelson said. And I feel like for whatever reason, we are all being trained. Like this isn't just, I'm going through this course and I'm whatever. And this is a really tender thing. I'm just saying a prayer right now, if it's okay for me to share these thoughts and feelings I've had. But ladies, honestly, I feel like there will be a time when there will be a need for trained women to be able to speak the gospel in whatever area, whatever genre, whatever place we're in. And when that comes, that they'll be like, where are the women? And we can say, here am I, send me. And we will have these trained women. I remember someone talking about China and saying, oh, second coming. Oh, we'll know because it'll take a while for China to really like open and stuff. So that'll be a big deal. So that would take several years and that will be whatever. And I remember someone saying, no, there are pods of people in China. And the second that China opens, you will be amazed at how it will explode. And I remember there is a prophecy that there will not be enough time for missionaries to teach all the people that are to be taught there. And I was like, you know what? He is training people in China. And when the moment comes, they will be like, boom, ready. So I just want you to know, in my personal opinion, what you ladies are doing is not just a little 12-week course of how I can be a better teacher and a better speaker. I feel like your concentric circle influence is going to not only be used individually for yourself in some beautiful way now and in the future, but that you will, by virtue of who you are, or even in some specific capacity, you will be teaching women the things that you have learned as well. And whether it's specific and intentional, or it's a byproduct of maybe, Wendy, what you're teaching your women in your retreats, doesn't matter, but you will be teaching how to specifically and effectively speak and speak up and speak about the gospel and use it in a way that people can receive it and can be influenced by. So I just want you to know that I feel that to my soul. So kudos to you guys for heeding the call, which I feel is what exactly we're doing right here. So I love you. Okay, let's move to the keynotes. I would love someone to go ahead and be the hot seat person. Say, okay, I'll be the hot seat. And then the other person can share what it is that they learned from it. And I will share my notes that I made on as well. Amanda wants to be the hot seat person. Let's do this. All right. We're just going to have you go ahead and unmute if you want to, but you can stay muted for a second. I want to, well, first, let's get your 1 minute take on what your keynote, how you felt about it. And then Wendy Jones is the one that looked at yours. And then we'll have Wendy give you feedback. Now, let me preface this, ladies. This is not a I love you fest, okay? This is I'm going to give you feedback that I think is going to help you fest. And we all know we love each other, and we all know that we are really good speakers. You wouldn't be here if you weren't a really good speaker. So you're already great. So don't stress that. This is about good, better, best. So any feedback that we can take that is positive and constructive and can be like, I felt this, I was thinking that. I just had a check-in call this morning with someone in the DTLC. And she said, you know what? I was thinking about this thing that was bothering me, but I didn't really want to ask about it or share it. And I was able to, in that moment, say, this is the thought that I had about this. Do you, first I said, do you want any feedback? Because I have to invite that. And she was like, yes. And I said, here's the thoughts that I had about it. And do you know what? It shifted her from, I don't know if I did, to, I love it. I got it. That's what I needed. That's exactly what I needed to hear. And I need to do that. Yes, that sits in my soul. So don't be afraid to share constructive things that you felt. It doesn't mean that's the 11th commandment. It means that it gives someone choice, that they can now say, do I want to take that? Do I not? Does that resonate? Instead of just staying quiet. So that's what I would encourage. Okay, Amanda, what's your 1 minute thought?
My 1 minute thought. So I did perspective. Mine was all on changing your perspective. And my 1 minute thought was, it was really difficult to record when there was no audience. Like that was really hard for me because I felt like I wasn't able to read the room. I wasn't able to engage with anybody. And so recording it was really, that was really challenging for me.
Yes. And that is the hallmark of an incredible speaker, is if you can still have your energy, be engaging, and still do the things when you don't have an audience. And I think I shared that with you, that Clint Pulver experience where he went on stage, but for whatever reason, he couldn't hear anything. He had his head stuff in. He couldn't hear anything. All he could hear was him talking. He couldn't hear feedback. He couldn't hear anything. And it was, I think it was when he was doing the Zoom thing, he didn't even know if people were hearing him or could see him. And he had to speak for 45 minutes. 45 minutes. He just had to go. He couldn't stop and do any, hey, are you guys hearing me or whatever? It's so unprofessional. He just went. And he knew if there was something seriously wrong, someone was going to have to tell him, but he just went and he gave his full on for 45 minutes as a big stage keynote. Yikes. So whatever you do, just keep going as if. And that's a really good phrase, as if everything is good, as if everything was working perfectly, as if You were just giving your awesome keynote no matter what. But you're exactly right. It's a really hard way to give a keynote is no audience. All right, Wendy Jones, thoughts and feedback, things that you loved and things that you think might be helpful.
Okay. There was way too much to love in her presentation. It was so good. Her beginning story was a major hook. Like it was just like from the beginning, I was like, I am all in. I totally want to hear everything that this woman has to say because her beginning story was so good. I love that she brought in a Dallin H. Oaks quote, but it was not religious. It was one that he said, when he was Utah Supreme Court. Is that what you said, Amanda? So that was really awesome. She shows a video. I didn't get to see the video, but she tells you that what you're about to see is a video. And then she says, it had to do with basketball players and how many times they pass back and forth. And anyway, she basically says that you'll find what you're looking for. And it's true. I was looking, if I were watching it, I would be looking for what she's telling me to look for, and you wouldn't see the thing that you missed. So you find what you're looking for, which is so applicable in a classroom. But I felt like it was so good about life in general. So I loved that she kind of made it something that was a little bit broader, but then because the basketball game had nothing to do with classroom, but ultimately the idea was that you'll always see what you're looking for. Everything that she said, all of her points all tied back together. Everything, it wasn't like, I've got this idea and this idea, and these are the things I want you to work on. It was like all three of them had to do with each other. So I felt like that was a real strong point. And then she tells a story about some deaf students, or a deaf student and the translator, and how the teacher misinterpreted the situation. I had a lump in my throat. So it was an emotional sell for me. It was just like, oh my gosh, I was thinking like that teacher, the way I was in the teacher's shoes going, why are these kids being disruptive and talking? And then when you find out that it was a deaf student and the translator, I mean, I had like a lump in my throat listening to that story. It was such a cool story. So I loved it. And I wanted her to finish. Like she ended at having eyes to see, and then she hit her next point. Like her next point was going to be having ears to hear. And then she ended, but I wanted to hear the rest of her presentation. So I was hooked. It was so good. The only thing I asked her to do is she had a question at the end, where she challenged people to write something down. What is one thing that you can do in your classroom to better find the students who ... or whatever. I miss quoting you, Amanda, but it was too broad. And I feel like most people wouldn't be like on the spot, be able to like come up with what's a thing that I can do to look for students who. It was too broad. I wish she had said, I wish everyone would write down a name of a specific student. Like think of one student right now who you're concerned about, or you're wondering what's going on at home, and I know teachers because my husband's in the industry of schooling. And so I know that if you write down a specific student, you're more likely to go back and be like, yeah, what could I do to hunt down that teacher? Almost like ministering, what's one lady in the word that you're concerned about? Can you find out what's going on with her? So it was just being a little more specific in her question. But other than that, it was awesome.
Love. Absolutely love. It was so good, Amanda. And you have a very strong way of communicating. It's very credible. It's very authoritative. And yet it's not overbearing and annoying. It's just I know who I am. I know what I'm talking about. And I know you're going to learn today things that are going to change your life. That's the energy that comes from you. It's just beautiful. I agree with everything that she said. I loved the thought-provoking question. I loved what I thought maybe it might at the beginning to have a question that said something that would relate to them personally first, and then funnel it to the perspective in the classroom. But you don't have to do that. But what I found myself, maybe because I'm not an educator and it would work just with educators because that's who you're speaking to, but something like, I can't read my writing, what would change, what want to change if you could change your belief? Okay, what would you want to change in your life if you could change your belief, or something like that? Something like, what do you think could change in your life if you changed your belief? What do you think could change in the classroom if you changed a belief about your students? So starting with them as a person and then narrowing it down to the classroom, because it's all about them and what's in it for them, right? As a person, as an educator or whatever. So that was just a thought and idea. You don't have to take it. Love the great cues. And I loved how you kept saying the data shows, because that is irrefutable in their mind of, it's not just Amanda saying some cute little things. This is data, this is backed up. I would love for you, when you do say that, maybe ways to how to apply it to them. So just ways that they could apply it right there. But this is one point, so I totally get it. And I loved how you did the overview of the 3 things they're going to learn. And then you started at number 1 and you did the finger point with that. Again, these physical gestures, they're so good. I would encourage you. I love that you had video right off. You had something like every 30 seconds to a minute that was unexpected, and it kept me engaged. It was so good, whether it was a question, whether it was a thought, whether it was a situation, whether it was a video, it was great. I would encourage you to give them a tool quickly. So a specific tool. So they could be thinking about that. Maybe it's, I want you to think of one student right now. As we're going through these things, I want you to have this in your mind so that they're actively engaged through all of these points. They're thinking of that one student. That's just a thought. And one other thing was, you have, oh, your repeater statements were great. Change your perspective really does create change, or whatever it was. That was great that you would say that, and you said it a few times. That was just in your first point. Fantastic. Great job. So good. I think just tweaking a couple of these things and you have it solid, and then it's just practicing it. So it's just in your sleep, you're almost saying it, but so good. Love the red thread. Love it. It was really well done. Nice job. Okay, who wants to go next? All right, Wendy Christensen. And Wendy is hot seating. So tell us one quick snapshot of how you felt about your keynote. And then, sorry, remind me whose artist is doing Wendy.
Artist.
Sorry.
Artist.
I have my other notes in the other room and I had to pull them in and I don't want to get up and go in the room again. So anyway, go ahead. Tell us just how you felt about your keynote, what worked, what maybe you wanted to do differently. Because you just shared some things about it, so we get that.
Yeah, and in fact, as you were talking, I'm already making notes on my keynote. Like, do this, change this. Like, no, I felt like I actually felt I really struggled with the beginning. I had the content, like I know my content because I teach it all the time. So that part, and then just rearranging a few things, but I was really struggling for some reason with the beginner and just that hook. I don't know why, but I was really struggling with the hook. So I want to make it stronger. I know it's not strong. Artist actually gave me a really good suggestion. So I'm going to take her suggestion and incorporate that. But I really wanted it to be stronger for the hook. So I have a stronger opening because I feel like the content's really good.
Yes, spot on. I absolutely agree. Artist, I know you're probably driving. It looks like you're driving. I don't know if you've stopped, but go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yeah, I loved it. It was so fun to listen to. And really, Wendy, you are a master storyteller. You've got so many great stories with such depth. I mean, that's what I realized. Like, here you are, you counsel and you help people, you help them dig deep, but you can dig deep and share a story too. And that connects people with you. And that's what I loved about your stories, whether you were talking about COVID and your experiences about your mother and your father-in-law and your sweet pets. And then, you know, when you started talking about World War II, like, you just had a beautiful way of weaving in your message in those stories. Like, I felt like I was on a ride. When it was over, I felt a little gypped. It's like I got halfway off the ride. I didn't get to finish the ride. You know, I wanted to hear the rest of it. It was so good. And you asked such deep questions right after that initial story about, you know, loss and pain and going through COVID. And then like I said on those messages, on those notes, I don't know if you could read it, I would take those questions, or at least one of them, and put that up on your hook. Put that up, get them to already start thinking about it, you know, and what that means, or a time in their life that they had pain, or, you know, it's kind of like, you know, COVID, we'll always remember where we were at when the world shut down, just like 9/11. There's those moments that imprint in your life, right, that you just will remember. And so automatically they can relate to COVID. We all just went through it, and you could ask them a really deep question about their feelings or pain, or because, you know, we all tried to get through it the best we can, but there were some yucky stuff, you know, we had family that passed away and all sorts of things. So I think, you know, just start off really with that strong hook, and then you're selling, you got it through that. So
Love.
Thank you, Artist.
I would add to that. I think that is actually a great starter question. Where were you when the world shut down? What do you remember from that day when everything started to close down, and just one thing after another, and all of the loss? And that leads beautifully into loss. How many of you have experienced loss during COVID? And they're raising their hand. Now it's all together. Now everyone's got a common thread. And then you can say, you know, our family experienced loss too. I would encourage you to either shorten that experience or jump right to the paragraph that started with your son's bunny and the other stuff, the fall of 2020. That's a really good power statement. In the fall of 2020, we experienced blah, 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 blah. And then being able to say, I know that this is something that other people have experienced too. And I know that we all have our own loss. I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about loss and pain and overwhelm. And I want to be able to reframe it so that we can feel it, move through it, and get beyond it and use it for good. I'm going to give you 3 tools today to make that happen. And then I would love for you to say something like that whole, not bury the nuggets. So one of the nuggets was the number one question that I found out. I would encourage you, I don't know if you saw the comments that I put back on your keynote, but I would encourage you to make that a standout. In my work as a therapist, then you're establishing credibility. I wanted to know what was the number one concern, the number one question people had in going through COVID. Do you have any ideas what that number one question might be? Getting them engaged, letting them answer your research and your stat. I love that kind of idea. I have other notes and I'll share it with you on a Marco Polo because I want to make sure and give time for everybody to share. I'm just seeing if there's anything right here. I can lift my hand. Can you lift your hand? Who do you need to stand? You said something about I can lift my hand. I can't do X, Y, and Z, but I can lift my hand. Was that yours or is that someone else's?
No, I don't think that was mine.
That was not yours. Okay, sorry. And this is, I've got artists on the top here. Sorry, I've got artists. Sorry. I've got to learn to write better handwriting. This is really pathetic. I am learning because I go so fast. I love that if you can say, I want to share 3 tools and don't share all the tools at first. Now, I love that Amanda, she's teaching educators. So she wants to tell them what she's going to teach them, and then remind them what she taught them. But that doesn't always work with people. It piques their interest. Say, I'm going to give you 3 tools. And the first tool is, so they're staying engaged of what is that tool. So I love that. And then finding a way for them to connect with each other. I think this kind of stuff that's so hard is going to be important for you to connect them with each other. The other thing was I would shift the gears a little. You have a very beautiful, soft, gentle way. There's going to be 1s and 4s and 3s in the audience. They're going to be like, I need this gear to shift a little bit. So instead of it being kind of the same energy all through, I would invite, and then if you feel like that's not authentic to me to have like this woo or this energy thing, that's where the pieces that you put in, a pop video, talking to each other, like you said, experiential, which was so genius that you popped that in. Add those in because that raises the energy level immediately, that connection, that something, and that will make it so that they'll want to have that very gentle to come back. And also in your stories, I encourage you to build, even if you're not like a Shazam storyteller, you don't have to be. Some of the best storytellers are very soft and intense, but they vary their intensity. They build the story and then they hit that denouement. So just watch that. I would guess in your storytelling. So watch for those key phrases and then punch it or like pause after it. What was the number one thing? It was this. Pause and then move on so that you have the varying pacing. So those were just a few thoughts. Beautiful. All right, who wants to be next for the keynote? Great job, Wendy, great job. And I don't know if you saw the notes on your keynote. I didn't, did you? Okay, if you have any questions or anything, let me know. But those, again, they're just thoughts. Go with what you resonate with, okay? All right, who wants to be hot seated next? Wendy Jones.
So you want me to say what my big takeaway was, or?
And now in the interest of time, since you kind of told us how you felt about your keynote already, let's go ahead and have, oh, it was Amanda. Amanda's on a district meeting right now. Let's jump to artists and see if she can get back on. And if not, then I'll just share my notes with you. That sound good? I haven't seen your keynote, but the thoughts that I've had about questions that you had before. Okay, artists, go ahead. And Wendy Christensen was doing artist. Go ahead.
So I would on a couple of things. Like Amanda said, it's hard when the audience isn't there because they do give you energy and you do react. And so to me, when I was giving it, I'm like, okay, if it was a small group setting, I could more interact with them. But if it's a bigger group, it's a little bit different, challenge. So that just being able to kind of use my imagination. I think too, I'm still trying to realize how much, the faith-based, I mean, it's in the garden, but how much I come out strong and say it like, where am I saying this to? Where, when am I sharing this? Is it at an expo or a conference? Like, I still am trying to, but I do agree. I need to get those key points and then I can shift it to whatever my audience is. But I did feel like it really was just beginning. Like, I still feel like it's fine tuning and adding some things and taking away some things. But it was good to get me moving forward, right? To take that first step forward. That's how I felt about it.
Absolutely. And if I can just speak to that for a second, I would put it in the way that feels the most natural and authentic to you, and then adjust it to your audience. Because you're going to be talking mostly, yours is like 40 to 55, 35 to 55-year-old women. They're going to be most likely Christian, faith-based women. So they will love and appreciate that you share God. Pioneer Woman shares about God. I mean, it's just a natural thing. Nature, people really agree that there's some divinity in this creation of nature, and it makes you feel close to it. So I think you're totally good to do that, and do it in a way that feels really genuine. Wendy,
Yeah. With that, because I don't share that, holding a big part of me back,
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Full on do it the way you would do it. And then we can help you tailor if you feel it, but you can adjust it to any audience.
Okay. So the first thing I wrote is artist spoke like a general conference speaker. Like, she had so much beauty and grace. It reminded me of like a woman speaking at general conference. So she's got it. Like, she was so confident and graceful in the way that she did it. She had a really great leading question, and I loved her passion. You could just feel her passion behind her question. And then she introduced the story. She had a great quote I wrote down: "He might win the battle," talking about Satan, but I will win the war. But then she told her husband to leave. It was just really powerful. And I could totally relate to her because I've been through infertility. So it was an infertility story she was sharing, and I was in it. I was deep in it. I knew the feelings and emotions. If I hadn't been through infertility, because of that experience she shared, I would have been in it too, if that makes sense. The only thing that I had as a suggestion for artists was she jumps from this deep, beautiful, rich story to then I was healing through generational gardening. And then she goes into it. But like, I had never heard of generational gardening until artists. So I had no idea like what it was. Now I know, but if I was a person that had never, ever heard of it, I think there would be just a little bit of a better segue with, I use generational gardening, which is because I didn't have any clue what generational gardening, if I had no idea, like, what is that? What does that mean? But you go in and you kind of describe it later with your grandmother and your experience there. So I start getting a clue at that time. But I think if I'd never, ever heard of it, I would have been a little bit lost right there in that transition, just a little bit smoother transition from this beautiful introduction hook into then getting into the nitty gritty, if that makes sense. Let's see. Yeah, I love the story with your grandma. You described it so well. Like, the imagery was beautiful. She brought a rose, and that rose was so beautiful. It was like incredible because my father-in-law was a rose breeder. So I was like, wow, that's so amazing, because he invented all these roses, but I'd never seen one like that. So for me, it was really cool. Let's see. And I think that was the biggest thing. I thought she really, and I loved that she brought that in because it brought the gardening to life. And I wanted to continue hearing it. I wanted to keep experience with whatever she was going to talk about, because it started getting really fun with her actually bringing a rose and talking about it, and the story with her grandmother. I was loving all the stories. Artist is really good at storytelling as well. Did we lose Connie? I'm like, I think we lost Connie, didn't we?
We're still recording. Oh, there she is.
You're muted, Connie. There we go.
I know. I just brought in my charger as well. And I thought I'll plug in my phone for a minute, and then I'll plug in my laptop, and it still had 20% it showed. And then it just went, anyway, go ahead.
No, I had just finished. She's really good at storytelling. I was very, very engaged, and she left me wanting to hear more. I wanted to hear more about the gardening and the roses and the healing and all of that. Like, it really did leave me wanting to hear more.
It was so good. Thank you for sharing those things. Sorry, I missed that last minute of it. But I'm telling you guys, I had everything prepared and all set yesterday. And I feel like the adversary is just poking at me, like provoking me this morning. So artists, I just want you to know it was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I loved your weaving in of the rose. It made me smell it, made me want to smell it. And the way that you showed it, you had it there. And I agreed the thing with just that transition. And I would make it more of a thing. And then I was looking for a solution. And the most unexpected one that I found, it was crazy. I found this unexpected solution. It was generational gardening. And you might be saying, what is that? Seriously, I agree. And I realized it's healing families through nature, being involved in nature together, whatever tagline you want to put on there. And the power of that, how it's not just weeding and it's not just planting potatoes, but it's this whole realm of us connecting with nature to connect with him, to connect with each other. You see what I'm saying? And then you roll right into the things that how that, because I love that you said things like, and I realized I needed healing. I still needed healing. And I loved, even though I haven't dealt with infertility, 7 kids, but I'm just saying, sometimes you're like, please, but I'm just saying, I love that yours was across the board. I could relate to when you told your husband, that is such a powerful experience. When you curled in a ball and you stood in that, you rolled up in that empowered space of, I get it. I hear what you're saying. Now turn off the lights and let me be. Loved it. Like I looked at you and just went, she looks like a general conference speaker, but she's got grit. And I love this grit and grace. It was just beautiful. And I love the picture of the Emmy Rose. And I love that you said how they can do it. Give tips for you to be able to do it. That was so important. It's not that we just want to talk at them and share how we're awesome or how we learn, but it's how they can do it. I'm going to show you how you can do this too. That was great. Loved it. Kay and Amanda, do you want to share about Wendy Jones? Thank you so much. I know you're switching gears.
Make sure that I'm on mute on different names. Okay. So yes, I have so much about Wendy. So let me grab my notes here. Okay, I love that she starts with a navigation example of where she thinks she's going one way and ends up going a complete different direction, because we've all been there and it automatically puts me in that spot. I love that she asks connecting questions. So she says, have you ever been there? Have you ever felt that? I love that she did that. I love that there's one point in her presentation where she says, I'm going to open up to you and share something personal with you. And as soon as she says that, you're on the edge of your seat, because you're like, oh my gosh, like this is something you want to know. You're going to get the juicy details. And I love that she did that. She kept asking, can you relate? And then I loved this. It was like a power phrase when she is sharing that opened up moment. And then she says, this is the moment when I realized. Like it was all of a sudden that moment she knew that this is not okay. And then she visually tells you exactly what she does to change that situation. So I loved that. Loved all of her quotes. Every one of her quotes related to exactly what she was sharing. Let's see. I loved, hold on. I think they're calling on me. Just a second. Nope, I'm good. Okay, let me mute that. Well, kind of. Okay. Sorry, I just realized you were probably getting all that feedback. I'm so sorry. I loved when she talked about, there's one moment when she goes into how we compare and how she compares it to being in your lane. And sometimes we want to get out of our lane and we do it because of social media, or we want to do it the way this person's doing it. And when she was describing that and she talked about we get out of our lane, I literally could see like rush hour traffic. And I could just like in my mind, I could see chaos. Like I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, why do we do that? Why do we do that? And then I love there's a moment when she says our job, and it's with one of her quotes, when she says our job is to understand what he is saying to us, what the Spirit is saying to us, and our personal revelation, and that's our job. And she relates it to languages and how everybody has a different language, and I loved that. And my suggestions to her were, when she was saying like, I want to open up to you, she then quickly apologizes, like, I'm sorry, I'm a visual person, so I'm going to give this to you visually. And my suggestion was, don't apologize, just give it visually. Like, just take us there, because visually you have us create that in our mind, and we want, like, it's always show, don't tell. So I love that you take us there visually. And then my other one was when she talks about understanding how he speaks to you, to go ahead and have them do something in that moment, like write down 3 specific things that you know the Spirit is talking to you. Like, how has he spoke to you? Like, what are the moments when you were like, I know in that moment the Spirit was speaking to me. So I just thought it would be really good to connect to that. And then and I'm sure she just, like, the pauses, just take a moment to pause. Like when she says, the moment that I realized that this was the moment that I realized that things were not right, and then pause and then go into what she had learned. So yeah, she did great. Like, and I've heard her give this because she gave it to my missionaries, and she is incredible. Like, it was so good. So yeah.
Love. Oh my gosh, that is fantastic feedback. I just told my gal at 10 o'clock, just give me 3 more minutes. I love that. And I gave extensive notes on Wendy's keynote, so I'm not going to take time to do any of that feedback there, but I loved, even in reading your keynote, it was beautifully laid out, it beautifully threaded, and it had this feel of confidence and clarity. I want to share just a couple of thoughts before we go, and this leads to what with Wendy. I love that you made that point of don't apologize. We choose something and we go for it. Even if it turns horribly wrong, it doesn't matter. We choose it and we own it and we commit to it. So I love that. I want you guys to say, I am an inspiring, big stage, national speaker. Whatever your tagline or whatever your affirmation needs to be, write it. I am an expert in my field. I am an expert in teaching this. Why? Because you have life experience, you've studied, you've prepared. You are an expert. We're all experts in it because we're living it, we're sharing it, we're teaching it all the time. So I encourage you to come from that space. Stand in that space when you're speaking. You're not, otherwise we get the shoulder hunch, or we kind of go like this, or we kind of make little nervous jokes or things like that. Stand in that space. I am here to share with you, and I've prepared, and I trust the Spirit's going to fill that in. And I know that you know things. And so we're going to have a synergistic experience. State conference on Sunday, my state president got up and they just did a musical number that was, I mean, shockingly stunning. This one man that just stood and sang, and this one woman who did this violin, and it was just gorgeous. But it was like, they said, we just shared an experience, and that's it. We want to share an experience. So the way to do that, you're the guide for this experience. You're the one that's going to take them on this experience. So stand in that space of, you're trusting me, I'm credible. You can trust me with it. I've got you in the palm of my hand. This is where we're going. So I wanted to make sure and share that. Make sure you're teaching them skills so that they can transform in something. Think transformational. What tool, what skill can I give? Wendy Jones does the mapping. That is transformational. She can share one piece of that and then, or do it quickly and then say, I've got this free download. You can go and you can experience it. She probably should do a video, and you may already have that, of how to take them through that. And that would be your either a little mini course that you could give them, like a 10-minute video or a 15-20-minute video or something. You could break it into 5 minutes, but that would be a good either lost leader or something like that. You're like, I've got this mini course and I'd love to share it with you, because that is a beautiful thing you can lead them to, and it's just so natural. So make sure whatever you do, it's transformed. I love that the rose, like artists used, it was a very clear visual, it was a very smelling visual, it was all the senses. Try to involve all the senses in your keynote. Something you can smell, taste, hear, whatever. And even if you don't give them something to taste, you're doing something about the taste. I used to do life, marriage is like a box of chocolates. And then I'd have a Brussels sprout in the box when you open it up. And who wants to take the Brussels sprout? They all want to take the chocolate. But I had the chocolate and we would pass it around pre-COVID. So they could smell it, they could taste it, and then they could see the yuckiness of the Brussels. So whatever it is, just do something that will kind of as many of the senses as you can. And then build to the moment of awe. So sometimes in your stories, it kind of, you would end the story and go, blah. So try to make sure you build to that moment of awe, where it's like, oh my goodness, where it was that with Amanda of, he walked back and he saw that she was signing. And they were actually fully engaged in what was going on. This girl was helping the other girl actually know what was happening through the use of sign language. So make sure you build to that moment of awe, of that awareness, of that aha. And it's like, oh, I get what you were saying. And then you can't unknow it, right? So those were just a couple of thoughts that were overall. I have some other things I want to share with you, but we'll do it next time because this was the most important thing, was to do our peer review and our keynote. How did you like the experience? Was it helpful? There is nothing more helpful than watching yourself on video, even though you kind of have to do some deep breaths. I know, but you ladies, Wendy, share it, send me yours. I want to see it. I am so proud of you. So good. We are all starting it so good. I mean, wow. So all this is going to do is just get you to be stellar. And that's the goal. I'm so excited. I have a couple of quick questions for you. On Wednesdays, would it be better to move our office hours on Monday to Wednesday at 9 o'clock? Is Monday a little crazy? I really do not want you guys having to do anything on Sunday for this stuff. And sometimes it can get a little crazy. Would Wednesdays work better for you, or a Monday still good? Okay, we have a yes for Wednesday. Anybody else a yes for Wednesday? Doesn't matter. Yes, artists.
Monday's best for me because I shifted my schedule so I could make Mondays work. And so I filled something up on Wednesday. So yeah, sorry.
Okay. All right. We'll just keep it for this. But I just was like, I wonder if that's going to be like an issue. So I just want to, what we'll do from here on, and the assignment was originally for Friday, so we were trying to avoid it. But what we will do from here on is just to make sure that things get taken care of before Saturday. So you don't even have to think about it. So Sunday's just clear day. But so appreciate you guys all were amazing. You did it. Even in the hard stuff, and then you did, and you shared with each other beautiful feedback. Absolutely fantastic. So I have not thought yet about what we want to do, and I wanted to ask your question. I have thought about it. I haven't decided is the word that I should have used. I feel like I had moved in my plans quicker for our keynote, so we were already going to be moved on from stuff from right now. But I found in the DTLA program with Ashley, we ended up spending 6 weeks on the presenting because that's so important. It's so important to get the key stuff and the information right. And then you can finesse, then you can do all the get the gigs and all that stuff. How do you guys feel about that? That this week we work on the actual finessing of your keynote so that by next Monday, your keynote is done. How do you feel about that? Good? Okay, and that would take us to that 6-week point, and I feel really good about that. The other stuff will go actually pretty quickly. It's just logistics and things that you can do mainly. But I feel strongly, you got to have a strong keynote. You absolutely, that is the key. That's why it's a Keystone keynote. It's that and how you're going to present that. So once we get the material good, then it's just you being able to present it better and better and better. And that's a lifelong thing. So let's work on that for your keynote. Just bring any questions on Wednesday, but by next Monday, you should have the final keynote. Now, my last question to you is, do you want to record your full keynote by Friday? Or do you want to just have it done? And then the option on, you could do Wednesdays between 9 and 10:30. Should we do Wednesdays at 9 to 10? Or because we have questions on Wednesday that we can meet in our coaching that we could also do the same thing. But you tell me, raise your hand if it's Wednesdays, or yes, that would be the best one. I know Amanda is a yes for Wednesday. So
yeah, if that helps Amanda, I can do it. I just have to be to the school by 10:45. So
okay. So I'm good for either one, but just whichever one would work better for you guys. So Mondays, raise your hand. And I know Wendy's good for both. So we have one that's yes, Monday's good. What about Wednesday? Wednesday would be preferred.
I can do Wednesday. It's just my kids have my daughter, we'll work it out. She has late start Wednesday, but I'll make it work.
Okay, I am super good either way for you guys. So why don't we just do it in WhatsApp? Because I got to hop on. So let's weigh it on WhatsApp. Think about it and then put it on there and then let's decide. Okay. So for right now, just know I need you to have your keynote finished for sure by next Monday. And then we can decide if we want to have it videoed by Friday or if you want to video it next week while you do another assignment. Okay. So I'll put that on WhatsApp. All right. I love you, ladies. Take a breather today. It's well earned and we'll talk about it in WhatsApp. Love you.